All right, so it's a Business Monday, the beginning of the working week. Good evening to you. Welcome to Business Focus. My name is Alfred Okanse. This evening, the Africa Middle East Resources Investment Group LLC, that's AMERI, has stated that its 2015 agreement for plants offered the best value for money despite government findings that the $510 million deal was bloated by some $150 million. The plant has a tariff of 15 cents per kilowatt hour, but the same power is sold to the Electricity Company of Ghana at about 5 cents per kilowatt hour, leaving a deficit of 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, with these statistics, did it make business sense for the country to go for that plant like that during the time of the crisis? And also, what impact will AMERI plant have should government take a second look at the agreement? Tonight, we'll be getting into the business aspect of the back and forth on AMERI. Another issue, commercial banks have cut interest rates on customer deposits. I'll be looking at that on the latest on that. I heard there you look watching us, what impact it would have on you. These are many more here on Business Focus. Is what we're going to be focusing on this evening. As always, feel free to join us with your thoughts if your money matters to you. Let's find out how the business has been throughout the week with respect to the summaries of the news. All right, so it's a Business Monday, the beginning of the working week. Good evening to you. Welcome to Business Focus. My name is Alfred Okanse. This evening, the Africa Middle East Resources Investment Group LLC, that's AMERI, has stated that its 2015 agreement for plants offered the best value for money despite government findings that the $510 million deal was bloated by some $150 million. The plant has a tariff of 15 cents per kilowatt hour, but the same power is sold to the Electricity Company of Ghana at about 5 cents per kilowatt hour, leaving a deficit of 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, with these statistics, did it make business sense for the country to go for that plant like that during the time of the crisis? And also, what impact will AMERI plant have should government take a second look at the agreement? Tonight, we'll be getting into the business aspect of the back and forth on AMERI. Another issue, commercial banks have cut interest rates on customer deposits. I'll be looking at that on the latest on that. I heard there you look watching us, what impact it would have on you. These are many more here on Business Focus. Is what we're going to be focusing on this evening. As always, feel free to join us with your thoughts if your money matters to you. Let's find out how the business has been throughout the week with respect to the summaries of the news. All right, so that's just a summary of what the news has been throughout the week, and we're hoping for a rather more business-friendly week ahead of us. But if you're just joining us, this is Business Focus this evening, and a major focus will be on the business aspects of the issues coming up of the Ameri deal, which, as you may already be aware, the Parliament Select Committee on Energy is a hearing, making a hearing on it going forward to determine whether or not to renegotiate or to abrogate. Those two positions is what government is considering. I've been joined in studio by Kojo Poku. He is an energy expert and also authority on oil and gas issues in this country and beyond. Kojo, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening.
It's good to have you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Great. Now, we're going to go straight to the point. Did it make business sense going for the Ameri plant at that time that we went for it in 2015?
No, in 2012. You see, Ameri deal was not gone in for. The Ameri plant came into Ghana in 2015. But you know that the transaction started way before.
3 years before
the delivery. So the transaction, as in meeting the groups that were in charge of this transaction. Now, let's put it in perspective. You don't have money. You are in darkness, okay? You want emergency plans. You go into the market looking for something that can be delivered to you immediately without you having money. Immediately, you find a company that tells you, oh, I'm able to find you 250 megawatt plant, brand new, sitting there. I can deliver it to you. You don't have to pay anything. All you have to do is pay me over 5 years, and I can bring it immediately, and it's ready to go.
True.
As a government, it makes a good business sense. Some of us supported that transaction, okay? That you are able to get, with no money, no upfront payment, somebody is prepared to deliver you
full,
brand new,
pre-financing of the whole process.
The whole process, okay? Now, 510 million for what it's worth at that time, for being in darkness and getting that transaction, at that point, it made business sense. And after 5 years, the plant is yours. Then we now find out that the 510 has a middleman margin of over 150 million. That is where the problem now started. That, look, hey, hold on, what's going on? We thought the 510 was the cost of the machine, only to find out that Ameri, who were just the middlemen, brokered the deal between a company called Medca and government of Ghana, and Ameri now walked away with 150 million just being the middleman. So that is where the conversation is. Is it a good transaction? Yes, it was, because Ghana government didn't have money at that time. Okay? And after 5 years, the plant is yours. So when Honorable Commander Nonko says that is the best deal that you could have got, yes, if you don't have money, it's the best deal you could have. Also, is after 5 years, that plant is yours.
Because we went in for...
we keep saying that, oh, we've paid somebody money. We've not paid for the Ameri plant. We've only had it since it came in 2015. So the Ghana government has only paid 2 years on the Ameri. It still has 3 years to go. So we've not fully paid, so we are not out of pocket of the full 150 million yet. Do we abrogate? That is a different kettle of fish altogether. That's the problem with Parliament. Parliament should have done their due diligence. Parliament should have done their homework. And this problem will not have arisen. We only got a wind of this when somebody mistakenly sent an email. And the attachment now informed Ghanaians that, hold on, this plant did not cost 510. So that is that whole thing. But I don't think that it can easily be abrogated.
Now, from your reading of the situation, at least from what has panned up until now, are we treading on slippery waters, or there is good enough reason to embark on the exercise with which we are on now?
There's nothing. Look, a transaction is a transaction. You sign an agreement, you move on. The slippery waters that you talked of is the investor confidence in Ghana. It's such that when they eventually convince themselves that they want to do business in Ghana, one of the things they rely on heavily is that when there is a parliamentary approval, it is cast in some sort of stone. The minute Parliament now goes that road of rescinding an approval, it means that the next time we have any agreement and NDC is majority and they are in power, they can also rescind all the agreements that MPP entered in. What does that leave us as a country? In most part of the Western world, a company's corporate guarantee, okay, the state-owned enterprises, corporate guarantee is good enough for a transaction. In this country, the only company which is a state-owned enterprise whose corporate guarantee is good enough for transaction is GMPC, because they have quite amount of money coming to them from the oil find. So they can give a corporate guarantee, and some companies will take it. Apart from GMPC, nobody else can give a corporate guarantee. So everybody comes in and asks for government security, which is the parliamentary approval. The minute that becomes worthless, when Parliament now goes this Katie Hammond route of rescinding an agreement, then that's it. We are done as a nation.
So in your view, the business community out there is keenly following the happenings here, and whatever the outcome will be would clearly inform a lot of decisions from investors going forward.
Some of us are very worried because some of us that are out there trying to get investors to invest in Ghana on the daily and the weekly basis, that happening. You see, most politicians are not businessmen. Okay, so they don't really see the real effect of their actions. Even the talk of it that they are holding these plenary sessions has a negative effect on the country. The minute it's done and they do it, I mean, they shouldn't even be thinking about it. The fact they are thinking about it is bad enough. If they actually carry it through and rescind it, that's it. No country or no company worth their salt would come into Ghana and rely heavily on a parliamentary approval, because then it would have been basically can be rescinded by the opposition party when they come into power, which is bad.
I'm looking at so let's shift gear now into the financials and look at the business benefit of it. So it's clear that yes, if we go on that path or even thinking about it, you think it's slippery. You recall that the VRA workers themselves raised issues with the tariff that Mary is charging, and then they having to pay ECG. So, for example, the plant has a tariff of 15 cents per kilowatt hour.
It's not really up to 15 cents. It's just a little bit below. It's 14 point something. Yes.
You can run it off to 15.
Yes.
But the same
but
power.
Energy is the capacity charge of 5.4. The capacity charge is about 5.4, and the energy is 9. Okay,
so that's the capacity tariff.
The capacity charge, which is basically to recover the cost of the plant that you have in place. The capacity charge is about 5.5. Yeah, 5.5. And then the energy charge, which is your gas and whatever, is 9. So when you add the two to it, it's about 14.5, as you clearly put it.
True. So and then if we can even draw it into the composite tariffs as well when we want to do that basic analysis.
Right.
But in that sense, the VRA workers raised the concern that if they are having to pay for the tariffs at 15 cents and then the same power is sold to ECG at a cost of 5 cents, leaving a deficit of 10 cents per kilowatt hour.
Well, it's not sold to ECG at 5 cents. It's sold to ECG. What me and you pay is about 9 cents. What we pay as consumers, as far back as last year when His Excellency John Dramani asked in the May Day speech that whatever tariffs was increased in 1st January should be rescinded and brought back. What we now pay is around 9 cents. That was when the dollar to the cedi was a bit lower. So now that we are around 4.32 or 4.42, depending which rate you are using, then it's less than 9 cents. So, but the point you're trying to get across is this: there's under recovery. Okay, 14 cents or run off to 15 cents. 15 cents is how much? And Asogli is in the same boat. Asogli is also around 14 cents. Kapa has a capacity charge of about 6 cents, and that one too, it's also. So yes, if you look at how much we as consumers are paying and how much we are actually paying for some of these plants like Kapa, Ameri, and Asogli, there is under recovery. The only good thing, that's why Katie Hammond will tell you, Honorable Kabradonko will tell you that it's a good deal, is that in 5 years, that plant is ours. Unlike the car power deal, where we are paying capacity charge of 6 cents, but in 10 years it will sail away.
Let me go into the telephone lines now. Ben Bachi is the Acting Executive Director of Africa Center for Energy Policy. Mr. Bachi, good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us. It is, according to Kojo Poko, Ameri is a good deal in the sense that after 5 years, because we use the boot approach, we would have ownership of it as compared to the other issues that have been raised about this deal. I find out your thoughts about this.
Thanks for having me. I mean, if anybody who understands how that kind of plant works would know that after 5 years, you don't have, a plant that you can compare with any of the plants that we have. These are emergency plants. They are supposed to be filling in the gap when you so need it. So their durability is not the same as any landed plant. The argument and the attempt to compare that plant with any other plant that we have in Ghana is absolutely misleading, and people should not be leading us in that direction. I mean, these are turbines that are designed to fill in the gap as and when you need it. If we run these Ameri plants continuously for 5 years, there will be no plant left, because the cost of maintaining it and repairing the equipment that would have gone bad by then, I mean, you cannot then be counting on such a plant after the 5 years. So these are the facts that we should know. You don't compare such a plant with any of the VR plants, any of the Asogrin plants, or any of the SunPower or any other plant that exists, because those are properly engineered to run that long haul. So they're not the same. You don't compare apples and oranges. If you're comparing plants, you have to compare. It's just like having our own gensets, the smaller ones we use at home. You cannot compare those ones to bigger turbines that are engineered to last for 20, 25 years. So that is what we have on our hands.
But it's...
Okay.
Well, you're going to make a point, unless I can just come in to say that it's just...
Yes, you can come in.
Yes, it is the case that if you look at the capacity tariff, for example, I've been doing some analysis in this case where the capacity tariff for Ameri is about 5.5 per kilowatt hour. And that is higher than the average approved capacity for the 9 plants that we have as installed now. This is about 4.4 per kilowatt hour. And then if you rank that together with the approved tariffs for the 9 comparable plants, it is indeed giving us some amount of value, would you say?
Again, that is misleading. I mean, it's only for propaganda purposes that people will want to mislead the ordinary person on the street. You're talking about turbines that are built when you bring them in. It's just like the generators you have, on standby. You just bring them in, they're ready to go. The other plants that we are talking about, before you position them, you have to do the civil works, you have to do the construction work, you have to build houses and office accommodation for staff and everybody that will be accommodated around the plant. So all that costs are factored into the calculation of the tariff. What are we talking about here? Ameri was just brought in, and significant part of the balance of plants, the civil works, the roads, the transmission lines, everything was in place. They were just positioned around existing infrastructure built by VRA, and they were ready to go. Even water treatment is not part of the construction. So all the other expensive balance of plants, composite, they are not part of that arrangement. So you cannot just even attempt, from any technical angle, to compare that bad deal with any of those plants that had all those components as part of the cost. So if you're doing the cost analysis and you want to really compare those plants, then you have to isolate all the other civil works, all the other balance of plants, the water treatment, which allows you to treat seawater to make it usable in the plant. You have to isolate all that cost before you can do that comparison. Don't block everything up and compare Ameri to it. They don't compare. There are 2 different engineering technologies, and there are 2 different systems that they don't compare at all. These are plants that just came. I'll tell you what, we spent 25 million Ghana cedis of oil money to prepare the place where we will put the plant. That is not part of the cost that we are talking about here. So if anybody is doing comparison, then you have to bring all the associated costs, all the balance of plants that are not part of the Ameri plan, before you can do that comparison. But this is not what we're doing here.
Right. Mbabache, I want to thank you very much for your thoughts. Joining us this evening. Grateful.
You're welcome.
Mbabache is acting executive director of ASAP. He seems to have a point of departure with some of the things that you put out there.
No, we converge on the same thing. I mean, I think it's the introduction you gave him that misled him a bit. I mean, Mbabache is my very good friend, and we agree totally that, look, the Ameri deal, when you go into it to look at how the billing, like some of the things that he came up with, how some of the billings were packed up into the Ameri deal, what's a bad deal? Was it a good deal at the time when you do not have any money to go into the market and get a plant to come and work immediately? Yes. How it was done, as in some other monies, like he's saying the 510 does not even include all the auxiliary costs that came about, okay? So that, me and him agree. But the other thing he said that is very confusing, the GE plant, which sits there as Ameri, doesn't have a 5-year shelf life. That, me and him, I'll beg to differ.
Because
in every plant has a minimum, in accounting terms, even your car, if you are to depreciate it, will be at minimum of 10 years. You cannot depreciate a plant like a GE plant, which came in brand new, in 5 years.
I've been looking at the internal rate of return analysis, and
with good maintenance on that plant can last us more than 10 years to 15 years. Because look, what is it? What are we talking about? It's just basically gensets at a much bigger version. So if you have your genset, you're telling me your genset will last for 5 years? If you change your filters, and you maintain them well. It's about maintenance. Most of the machines that we have in Ghana has basically run down after a few years because we don't maintain them. But that GE plant that came in as Ameri was brand new. So there's no way Ben can say that that plant after 5 years will not be worth anything. If with good maintenance, that plant can last us for another 15 years because it was brand new when we bought them. That, I disagree with him. The issue, what he makes, and I agree with him, is the fact that the bulk cost was more than the 510, because then if you look at what you are paying to Ameri and what money was used to do other things, where I say it's a good deal is that you don't have money, you go into the market, you get something to come in immediately to work for you.
To solve a particular problem.
Okay, and bear in mind, the minute everybody started making noise about Ameri, the plants were delivered. The plants was already in Ghana, delivered. So yes, we all have our problems with the middlemen. We all have our problems with how the prices were stacked up. But in terms of, you cannot compare the two. Was it a good transaction business-wise, whereby you don't have money, you get something to use? Yes. Was it a good deal, as in how politicians went about it? No, it wasn't.
There's some information on the VRA website I'm going to show to you on a slide right now, which gives us a clear picture of the installed capacity now, as the VRA installed generation capacity, as you have it listed. The Akosombo now installed capacity, that's the Akosombo Dam, that's installed capacity of 1,020, dependable capacity, which is about 900, and the type of plant is hydro. So merely be aware, depends on fuel. Pong, 160, that's installed capacity. The dependable capacity is 140. TAPCO and TICO are 330 respectively, but the dependable capacity here in this case is 300, and then that of TICO 2 is 200. That's what you see there as well. But when you come to the installed capacity for the independent power producers and other plants, that's where it would be of focus for us here with the discussion. Bui Hydro installed capacity is 400, and then also Ameri power plants about 250. But then the dependable capacity for that is 140 kilowatts there, as you see there. So it stands to reason that we cannot just wash away the contribution that Ameri as itself has within the installed capacity, so that if we're even talking or having a conversation about doing away with the plan because of the questions.
Well, really, now going forward, look, we've signed a lot of PPAs. There's over 3,000 PPAs signed. There's quite a lot of another plants coming on. You can't compare the two situations. Put yourself, reverse ourselves to 2013, 2014. We were in darkness. Going forward, we are not in darkness. Absolutely. So this conversation sounds different, okay? True. So now, if somebody wants to abrogate AMERI or take AMERI out, because of the way the PPAs have been signed and there are other companies that are now lined up to start operating or even build plants in Ghana, AMERI might sound insignificant based on what people want to do now, because you're not in darkness. But if, let's say, we were in darkness and we were basically on the threshold of maybe 50 to 80 megawatt shortfall, you will not talk about taking AMERI out, because that will plunge the country back into darkness. Now we are even in a situation where we are postponing some plants from coming on to 2022, 2023.
Because there's excess power.
There is excess power, okay? We also have excess security of fuel. The fuel security is much better than it was in 2014, in 2013. Remember when we started this problem, it was more of an infrastructure problem. Then a lot of plants came online, and around 2015, 2016, it became more of a gas problem because we didn't have fuel security. Sure. The West African gas pipeline was not coming through and stuff like that. So going forward, the AMERI plant served a purpose within when it did. But, I mean, anybody looking at the forecast of energy to be generated in the country in the next 4 or 5 years, you can take the AMERI out, even the whole 250 out, and you can still fill that gap because you would have a proper planning. But that I'm saying, the issue that there are two sides of the equation. You know, when Honorable Commander Nko sits there and tells you that, look, it was the best decision I made at that time, you would have to put yourself in his situation when he made that decision. You would now have to condemn it, looking at the situation that you have now, thinking that, look, was it a good decision made then? Yes, we were in darkness. Would you make that same decision now? No, you wouldn't, because we have excess power. So it is
clearly
really
we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to really having a permanent plan for this particular energy situation.
Well, we don't, because we have AMERI, which is is still lingering. Car power is 10 years, and that is another 450 megawatts. That's the 10 years that can go away in 10 years. It is not a permanent plant in Ghana. So in 10 years' time, car power might decide to sail away. So you have a deficit of 4 years. But the problem that you have now is that this government has a much better approach. They can sit back. The short-term solution is there. They have to concentrate on the medium to long-term solution to make sure that we don't end up in that problem going forward, let's say post 2024, 2025. But for now, between now and 2023, we can comfortably sit back and say that, look, we would not really have Dumso again. But if somebody takes their eye off the ball and all the plans that are scheduled to come on post 2022 does not come on, in 10 years from now, we could be looking at the same Dumso problem again.
I'm going to do this very quickly, and this is just a bit away from what we're discussing, but then it still bothersome business. The average base rate among commercial banks remained at 26.6% in September 2017, which is the same as recorded in August 2017. Now, the base rate is the lowest rate at which a bank would lend to its customers. According to the Bank of Ghana's annual percentage and average interest report, a survey of 31 banks indicate that Unibank still tops with the base rate of 36.8%, down from 39.5% recorded in August this year. So we're going to go on Skype now. Dr. Lord Mensah is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Doc, good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us, if you can hear me. Hello, Dr. Lord Mensah, good evening to you. Fortunately, he's unable to hear us. Hello, sir.
I think that the speaker is too, right, the volume is too low.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, speak up, please.
Now, I mean, looking at the Bank of Ghana's report, does the percentage of reduction meet the expectations of the likes of you who are expecting the banks to respond to the policy rates reduction?
Well, I think my camera will give you a bit of problem, but until I get closer to it, I won't hear you well. So if you can lift up your voice a bit. What I can hear is that the reduction in the policy rates across different banks meets our expectation.
Right.
Some of us were expecting a reduction, but then I presume that it is a gradual process. You know, the consistent reduction in the policy rate will which we are tied to the reduction in the,
Okay, so there's clearly a little problem there. I'm going to go for this quick break. We'll be back shortly. Someone to stay.
Talking about the one who tried with the Rollins daughter.
All right, welcome back from that quick one there. Now, we're going to go out to the telephone lines now and hopefully connect with Dr. Lord Mensah, who is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Earlier on, he joins us via Skype, which connecting was not too good. Now, Doc, good evening to you, if you can hear me. I was asking if the percentage of reduction as stipulated in that report by the Bank of Ghana meets the expectations of the likes of you who are expecting the banks to respond to the policy rate reductions?
Well, Alfred, if you ask me, I would say it doesn't at all. Because if you look at reduction and consistent stabilization of our monetary rate, I presume that the banks will respond exactly the same way as the way the MPR has been performing when it comes to their interest rate. That is the interest rate that the base rate that they use in pricing loans. But then they have not been responding as such. Now, for the past, I think, a year or so, we look at 2016, and the whole of 2016, we enjoyed some stability and at the same time some reduction. And we are almost at the last quarter, which the same trend has been following suit. And so I don't see the reason why the banks will not respond. But then on the average, if you look at across banks, you're looking at it around 26-point-something%. But then in the end, individual banks will have their base rate. I know very well that some are going to respond. Now, those that will be responding, if I should tell you, will be the bigger banks that have nothing to lose. But in the end, the smaller ones will not respond as it's supposed to be. So you're going to get different response in terms of the reduction across the board. But trust me, I presume that generally the banks are not doing Ghanaians favor in terms of reducing their base rate, which feeds into the pricing of loans across different banks.
Okay.
So I would say that it's not been favorable to get.
It's not been favorable. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Doc. I'm grateful. Dr. Lord Mensah is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, specifically the finance department, helping us with this analysis there. Kojo Boko is still with us in studio. I'm going to round up with you, Kojo. So it's clear, established, that there's a lot of interest that the business community is paying to what's happening around this whole Mary deal, and it would affect, either way, business confidence.
Well,
if it goes both ways.
It's not either way. I mean, the other way is to leave it as status quo.
It is.
Then the government can find other ways of trying to look at it. Most lawyers who have looked at this agreement have said, look, you can abrogate it, but try and find criminality. Okay? You need to find that there was colluding to rob the country of the 150 million that everybody is talking about. If you are not able to find that criminality, it will be difficult to abrogate the contract. And for some of us, what we've said over and over and over again is that if the government really wants to find the truth, have a commission of inquiry, have a high court judge sit, subpoena all the architects of this deal, the ministers, the civil servants, everybody that was involved, subpoena them, let them swear oath, and then testify. They would not lie, because if they lie and it's found out they lied, they've committed perjury and they can go to jail.
But a move has been made by this particular administration. Nobody's making mention of the lawyer Philip
Addison's committee
that went into this and whatever came out of it.
But did you see the draft?
Why is it not coming out?
No, but did you see the draft of that report? I mean, everybody has rubbished, and even the government that commissioned the report is saying that that report was not a final report. It was leaked, it wasn't signed, but from what we read, it doesn't hold water. I mean, you cannot abrogate that agreement based on that report, because that report basically go a long way to say that there are certain things they're supposed to do. They should come to the table and renegotiate. And Mary is not in the country. It's Medca that's in the country. Medca will not renegotiate with you, because what are they going to renegotiate about? They've given you a plant. The plant is working. Okay, it's Ameri, the company that they went to Dubai, and when they went to Dubai, we all heard what happened, whether true or not. But it now made the whole Philip Addison committee a bit tainted, and the report to me didn't come out the way it should have come out. So that's why you don't hear anybody talking about the Philip Addison report. What the government needs to do, if you want to find criminality, do a proper investigation. How are you going to do that? Subpoena people, let them swear oath, let them testify. Then you can compare the notes of what people tell you. Then you can now punch holes and hold some people in front of the court for colluding to defraud the country, causing financial loss to the state. And with that, you can abrogate the contract. If not, let's leave it as it is. Yes, MPP made a political noise that they're going to abrogate it. It's a word they want to keep, but it's difficult to keep. When you're in opposition, you can say these things. When you're in power, it's a whole different ball game.
It's a whole different ball game altogether. I hope the ball is played well.
Well, we hope that it plays well for the business community, because if they don't,
that's the most
it becomes a problem.
Economy is all about business. Thank you, Kojo Poku. I'm grateful.
Thank you, my brother.
He is an energy expert, also an authority in oil and gas in this country. Thank you very much for staying with us here on Business Focus this evening. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're grateful. My name is Alfred Okanse. Have a good evening.